Now the forum will hear the voluntary national review by St. Lucia. I invite His Excellency Sound Edward, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology and Vocational Training of St. Lucia to make the presentation. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address this forum on behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia as Minister with responsibility for education, sustainable development, innovation, science, technology, and vocational training. St. Lucia reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and presents our second Vienna report centered around the 3 dimensions of sustainable development and the 5 core dimensions that guide the SDGs, while highlighting a few of our civil society success stories. The government of St. Lucia continues to make progress towards the attainment of the SDGs, utilizing a whole of society approach, one in which the diversity of our rich culture and traditions are celebrated while simultaneously promoting voluntarism and togetherness. Accordingly, through strong partnerships, consistent collaboration with our private and public sector, and with due consideration of the particularly vulnerable amongst us in civil society, not forgetting academia, youth, and our global partners, we will continue to accelerate our progress during this decade of action, working collaboratively to ensure no citizen of St. Lucia is left behind. Our accountability is showcased in our medium-term development strategy, 2021 to 2026, continued from its predecessor by embedding the SDGs within the national planning framework, which features a resilient society guided by the theme Nutut Assam, which translates to "We are all in it together." We will continue to build on the gains we made on environmental sustainability over the years through strengthened institutional coordination and collaboration and adoption of priority policy instruments, including on climate change, oceans, biodiversity, energy, chemicals, and sustainable consumption and production. Our people are the heartbeat of our nation. Therefore, advancing social sustainability remains absolutely critical to the government and people of St. Lucia. We have a population of 180,000 people, the majority of whom enjoy a decent standard of living. With health being one of the pillars of our medium-term development strategy, we have made significant strides in the areas of disease control, health service delivery, and health infrastructure. As health sector reform accelerates, our citizens can look forward to continued improved access to modern healthcare services for a better quality of life. Quality education is one of the key elements in promoting social and human capital resilience. We enjoy gains from universal primary and secondary education and are on the verge of rolling out a comprehensive universal early childhood education program. We remain focused on advancing special needs education and technical and vocational education and training TVET, ensuring that job seekers are well trained with the relevant skills and knowledge to meet the demands of the job market. Our new Domestic Violence Act has propelled our nation towards gender inclusion and sensitivity as an integral aspect of our national development drive. We have enhanced our gender-responsive approach to development, and this is clearly articulated as a cross-cutting thematic area in our medium-term development strategy. Additionally, we have developed our National Adaptation Plan and sectoral plans with a gender-inclusive focus. However, we do have gender disparities that exist in areas such as education and employment. Post-secondary enrollment rates are higher for girls compared to boys, while the unemployment rate in the last 15 years is higher amongst females than males. A prosperous nation is a clear indication of economic sustainability and is one of the main goals of the government of St. Lucia. We have focused on strengthening our economic sector and enhancing and promoting our micro, medium, and small enterprises. For a peaceful society, St. Lucia, for a peaceful society, citizen security is fundamental to sustainable development, and this is why we have focused on improving our legislative and justice systems and access to information for all citizens of St. Lucia. We continue to partner with youth and civil society organizations, establishing long-standing and mutually beneficial relationships to ensure that all our citizens can contribute meaningfully to St. Lucia's sustainable development. We are pleased to showcase some exciting work being done on the ground. I am proud to introduce our civil society success stories in their own words. I invite you to view a video now.
In its commitment to sustainable development and leaving no one behind, St. Lucia continues to forge partnerships, build on synergies, provide opportunities, and engage in consultative processes with our public and private sectors and civil society, inclusive of youth and vulnerable groups. A people-centered approach is at the core of the development of our nation. Our SDG implementation process provides an opportunity to showcase the valuable contributions of our people. We are pleased to present our civil society success stories, and we begin with the National Council for Persons with Disabilities.
In addition to our advocacy, we believe in action, in actually implementing programs and providing our members with a tangible means of empowering themselves and in not just participating, but in leading in society. In our aquaponics facility, owned and operated by persons with disabilities, we have a project where inclusion meets innovation. At this facility, we highlight the SDGs of no poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, and reduced inequalities. So this aquaponics facility was intended to equip persons with disabilities with the skills that they needed to lead in the green economy in climate smart, resilient agriculture.
In our quest to facilitate and promote gender equality, social inclusion, decent work, and viable livelihoods in local industries, we present the story of Anne-Marie.
I opted to go into hydroponics. With climate change, we have a reduction in rainfall, so at least I'm making the more efficient use of the water that I have. So I have a closed system, so the water is recycled, and I change every two months. So at least there's some conservation of water, no damage to the environment because there's no chemical in the water, so your microorganisms in the soil not affected, no runoff into our rivers to contaminate and to affect the marine life.
We love to see our people thrive, surpassing national boundaries, infiltrating regional and international markets. Meet Jeg, one of our successful local entrepreneurs.
But my group was more stewards of the mangrove and using it for sustainable livelihoods. Part of what I do of my success is being part of that group, and we actually go into beekeeping as part of the diversify for the sustainable of the use of especially the Makote mangrove or the importance of it, and that's where we base. So that's what we actually do now, is moving from not limited charcoal making and then move into seamoss and deep and honey production in the area. So the seamoss farming will create a nursery for juvenile fish crustacean. All of the fishermen can be gained. And actually, because of carbon, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, we try to limit the amount of carbon because a lot of the members, that's their livelihood. So if they move into something where they could still get the same income from doing alternatives, they get less on the carbon, that would be better for us. So we try and move out from one to the next.
Community and rural development are essential to our growth. We present to you Diane.
Donation Foundation is actually an organization that works within the communities and, of course, the rural areas. One of the things that we believe in is Partnership for the Goals, which is SDG number 17. As no organization, no country, no government can do everything alone. We are in the community, we are on the grounds working in reference to the social ills we see in happening in society, the poverty, the youth, the elderly. We contribute basically to every single thing where there is a need and our service is required.
We continue to partner with our civil society and especially encourage our youth to actively participate in planning and policy development, capacity building, and awareness raising. They are already serving as the leaders of today.
Thank you.
I thank the Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology and Vocational Training of St. Lucia and his team for this presentation. Now I give the floor to the permanent representative of Tajikistan. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me join you in congratulating Angola, St. Lucia and our neighbors Kyrgyzstan for their excellent presentation, but also fulfilling their commitment when it comes to presenting the VNR, but also SDGs. My question would be directed to the Minister from St. Lucia. Mr. Minister, as you know, St. Lucia, like many SIDS, is facing serious climate change impact, despite contributing very little to global emissions. St. Lucia is experiencing significant costs and vulnerabilities when it comes to extreme weather, sea level rise, agriculture, water and food security, infrastructure, and etc. To this end, I would appreciate if you could share with us, Mr. Minister, information about what steps have been taken by the government of St. Lucia to assist citizens in adapting to climate change. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the permanent representative of Tajikistan. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of NGO Major Group, to be followed by Bahrain.
Thank you. We applaud the St. Lucia National Development Plan's whole of society and people-centered approach toward equitable SDG implementation. To deepen progress, we have 6 recommendations. Join state and non-state international allies to hold high-polluting countries accountable and pay their fair share for climate-related physical, psychological, and cultural loss and harm to ease financial burdens on St. Lucians. 2, finance NGO operations, monitoring systems to be more effective, sustainable, and continually improve community impact. 3, further indigenize and normalize the SDGs as a socially inclusive St. Lucian lifestyle, making explicit connections to public projects, business opportunities, so stakeholders can take ownership of the process from decision-making through implementation. 4, fund climate adaptation supports tailored for vulnerable St. Lucians and those living with disabilities, including parametric and other insurance mechanisms to recover losses. 5, within national education, health, and climate strategies, integrate holistic, trauma-informed, psychosocial resilience training for educators, first responders, caregivers, health workers across schools, mental wellness centers, and resiliency hubs to address growing youth mental health challenges, eco-anxiety, and loss. 6, in the vision plan, incorporate rights of nature frameworks, more indigenous and regenerative paradigms, not just sustainable, in farming, fishing, tourism, and blue ecopreneurship. We, civil society, are here to work with you to build a more resilient, equitable, and regenerative St. Lucia. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of NGO Major Group. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bahrain, to be followed by Botswana. Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to start by congratulating the three presenters, Angola, Kyrgyzstan, and St. Lucia, for their insightful VNRs. And my question goes to St. Lucia. As St. Lucia advances on meeting its targets for the Sustainable Development Goal 14, what is being considered to boost economic growth and what climate resilience through ocean governments in St. Lucia? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Bahrain. I give the floor to the State of Palestine, to be followed by Africa regional mechanisms of the major groups and other stakeholders. State of Palestine, you have the floor now.
I wish to offer a warm congratulations to all presenters for their insightful presentation of their voluntary national reviews. My question is addressed to St. Lucia, particularly in relation to the methods used to consult local communities and civil society through the review process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of the State of Palestine. Now I invite His Excellency Sound Edward, Minister of Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training of St. Lucia, to respond to the questions raised during the interactions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for the questions. Steps by the government of St. Lucia to assist citizens in adapting to climate change. One of the first things the government of St. Lucia has been doing, or attempted to do, was to embark on a comprehensive public education and sensitization campaign, and this is ongoing. In order for us to treat with the issues of climate change, there must be buy-in from every facet of the society. And so our public education and sensitization campaigns have been taken to schools, churches, and civil society organizations generally. I would have told you in my presentation that we are a small nation with 180,000 people. So we have reach, and it is up to the government to impress on the minds of the citizenry, irrespective of age or gender, the importance of climate change and how we can get the population to appreciate the realities of climate change, the causes of climate change, and very importantly, the debilitating impacts that climate change can have on St. Lucia as a small island developing state. We live on the front line of climate change, and everybody in this room knows where climate change emanated from, where it is coming from, who are the emitters, and who are the persons perpetuating the ills of climate change. But sadly for St. Lucia and other small island developing states of the Caribbean and the Pacific, we live on the front line of climate change. And in the space of half an hour, we can watch our entire GDP disappear from before our eyes because a Category 4 or 5 hurricane has decimated everything in our country, including lives, infrastructure, livelihoods, and everything that a hurricane can find in its path. Yet, we have to find the monies every year, borrow, because a lot of the pledges and the promises made by the international community to help rebuild are never forthcoming. So very importantly, we have to let our people know everything there is to be known about climate change in terms of origin, the consequences, the impact, and how we can deal with it. Any discussion about climate change can be had under two broad headings: mitigation and adaptation. And mitigation basically speaks to the things we need to do to ensure that there is a decrease in the amount of greenhouse gases and other substances in the atmosphere that facilitate and exacerbate the climate change situation as we know it. And then you have adaptation, the things you can do to cause your citizens to coexist with the realities of climate change. And that is where we are focused. Because as I indicated, we are not emitters, but we have to adapt and we have to live with the realities of climate change. So there's a lot that we can do to cause our people, and we are doing to cause our people to live with climate change and to lessen the impact on us as a people. We have been able to put in place a national adaptation plan which seeks to build resilience in priority sectors for a small island state like St. Lucia. So our national adaptation plan, it addresses issues in the water sector, the health sector, the education sector, the agriculture and fisheries sector, and also infrastructure. And very importantly, we must ensure that as we deal with climate change from an adaptation standpoint, that the tourism industry is central. And you might be asking, but why emphasis on tourism? Because tourism accounts for 65% of St. Lucia's GDP. This is the mainstay of our economy. And if tourists do not come to our shores, whether as cruise passengers or stayover visitors, the government will have a serious cash flow problem, which will ensure that we are not in a position to pay salaries, to have medicines in our hospitals, and to provide quality education for our children so that they too can live their dreams and become the professionals they can see their counterparts in the developed countries becoming. So this is very important to us. So as I indicated, we have to continue this robust and comprehensive public education campaign. And also very importantly, we have to continue along the lines of policy formulation to ensure that as we move forward, the standards we establish for building infrastructure and things of that sort cause our people to be a little more resilient in terms of how they deal with the evils of climate change. There was also a question, I think, that came from our colleagues from Bahrain. And let me say that the government is fully cognizant of the economic potential that can be derived from ocean governance. Very often we used to refer to ourselves in the Caribbean, St. Lucia specifically, as small island states. But today we have changed that narrative to admit that we are small island states, but we have vast ocean territories. There was a time when we were heavily reliant on a cash crop as the mainstay of our economy. In the case of St. Lucia, it was banana cultivation, which at one time in our history accounted for 75 to 80% of GDP. But because of WTO dynamics, we lost preferential treatment and we had to recalibrate, we had to reset our economy, and that is why tourism is now the mainstay and agriculture plays a less significant role in terms of contribution to GDP. So we have to begin with all the trade barriers and whatnot. We have to find creative ways to ensure that we bolster our economies. And we have recognized with the help of UN agencies like UNEP and others that we have a very precious resource at our disposal in the ocean and the marine space that we have for purposes of transportation, for recreation, and for livelihoods for fishers and other folk. So we have formulated a national ocean policy and strategy action plan, which looks at ocean governance and whatever we do in our oceans for the year 2020 to 2035. We've also developed a coastal master and marine spatial plan for 2025 to 2045 to regulate whatever happens in the marine space. And also, very recently, we were able to formulate a policy document, or put together a policy document known as the Marine Litter Management Action Plan, which at home we call the ML MAP. And this has a lot of significance coming out of UNEA, the United Nations Environment Assembly in Kenya, where a lot was spoken about in relation to plastic pollution and how it adversely impacts the marine environment in almost every corner of this globe. So we're fully cognizant that there's a lot of economic activity that can be derived from the marine space, and that is why we have embarked on deliberate policy interventions to regulate whatever is happening there. As I indicated, we're a small island state, but we are a vast marine territory, and we are working with international agencies and friendly governments to ensure that we harness whatever economic potential that lies in the ocean at our disposal. The last question came from Palestine, who wanted to know what exactly we were doing to ensure the incorporation of civil society organizations, particularly the vulnerable amongst us, in the whole discourse on national development as it relates to the attainment of the SDGs. Let me say that it is policy in St. Lucia to ensure that marginalized groups have a voice and a seat on state boards and for parastatal organizations in our country. We continuously embark on town hall meetings or community meetings, radio and television programs, and at every opportunity we invite the representatives of civil society organizations, in particular marginalized groups, to come to the table to dialogue with government with a view to ensuring that everybody is incorporated in whatever national policy discussions we have as we move towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, thereby giving the people of St. Lucia a much better opportunity at life and to ensure that they too can realize their goals, their dreams, and their aspirations in much the same way that their counterparts from the developed world would have realized. Thank you very much, Mr. President.